All right, welcome to the video. Happy Accountability Friday. I'm here at Grandview Primary Care with the awesome Sarah Johnson. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery today, testosterone, and a lot of my readings and kind of my journey back to powerlifting again after the bicep tear. I think Sarah and I met through Audrey, my girlfriend, but Sarah and I were connected a little more intimately. She was one of the first people I saw right after the bicep tear. It was Monday morning after, I think it was Halloween day, actually. I remember texting Audrey at 4. She related over to Sarah pretty quickly. So I'll let kind of Sarah introduce herself, kind of what your background is, Sarah. Sarah's also a trainer too, so I thought she was awesome to have on. But I'll let Sarah dive into this, and we'll talk a little bit about testosterone and recovery today.
So I'm Sarah. I'm a physician assistant. I started working here actually as a medical assistant with Dr. Bailey and the nurse practitioner now, Rebecca McLean, back in 2019. And so I went to school for health promotion, nutrition, and exercise science at Ohio State. And I recognized really early that there were some disparities in our healthcare system, and so when I graduated, it was really eye-opening to see a doctor who was, implementing exercise and nutrition into medical care. So I was really excited to start with Dr. Bailey, and from there, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get my master's, and I am now a physician assistant. I also do some personal training, and we do a lot of focus on exercise physiology here in the office, so I kind of oversee some of that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great thing I love about Grandview Primary Care, guys, is like this place. I was happy that after the bicep tear I could come here. There's such an emphasis on recovery and getting back to where you were, right?
Absolutely.
I think my issues, and we'll dive a little bit into this with like the original doctor's office, it's like, let's put this bandage on it, right? And like kind of go from there. But you guys really helped me kind of understand, and it wasn't just about the bicep tear. It's like, all right, Zach, let's look at your blood work and maybe what led to this and maybe under recovery and these types of things. So that was always appreciated for me. So Sarah was someone I wanted to have on because, once again, she was one of the first people that saw me after my tear. It was that morning. So what we want to talk about today is, after I tore my bicep, I started kind of going into the self-discovery, right? Like, Zach, I knew I had some problems, Sarah, right? I knew I wasn't recovering well. Audrey's definitely helped me kind of get my diet and nutrition back together and back to my full strength. But I think the things we want to really talk about today are testosterone levels, specifically in men. Touch on things like, is my testosterone low? How do I know it's low? How can I get it back to regular levels, right? And these things. So I think what we should start with is talking about my first levels, okay? Mm-hmm. So Sarah, I'll make her laugh here. So my biggest fear, you guys see all my tattoos, if you know me well enough, I've told a story of me getting my blood drawn. My last blood draw before I saw Sarah was probably when I was 24. I'm 27, gonna be 28 soon. And I got my blood drawn. I was with the nurse, and she leaned me back a little bit just like this. And she's like, all right, here we go. And I told her, I said, it normally passed out. Fire extinguisher hit my head. I'm on the ground. This nurse, she's a little thing. She's like, I caught you. I'm on the ground. Not good. So it was good to have someone drawing my blood who I knew I trusted. I didn't pass out. I've actually done it twice now with Sarah. So, and hopefully we're going to make this a recurring thing every 3 to 4 months. We're going to talk a little bit about my DEXA scan I'm doing every 3 to 4 months too. But first time we drew my blood, Sarah, was I think this was on January 19th, I believe. Yep. That was the first time, okay? And that was I think to my understanding, I remember it was a Thursday. I had clients in the morning, and I wanted to do it later in the day, just so I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't really know what the issues were with later in the day, so we get the reading. And what is the first reading, Sarah?
So Zach came in around, I want to say 132, maybe even 3.
Okay.
And his first reading for his total testosterone was 379.
Okay.
The range for testosterone in men is very wide, right? So it's usually 200 to 900 is what we go off of.
What would be considered a healthy range?
Healthy, yes.
Sure.
And so obviously, as you guys know, as you get older, things do tend to taper.
Sure.
As a 27-year-old, I expect you to be around 600.
Sure.
That is optimal level, right? So he was at 379.
Yeah, and I remember I had a panic attack.
Right.
I remember Sarah said something, I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. So
really eye-opening.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was also like, this is weird. What's going on? So I decided I was going to run a whole testosterone panel. So I checked your sex hormone binding globulin as well as your free testosterone. And so basically what those two things are, Total testosterone is going to be obviously all the testosterone you have in your body.
Okay.
Our free testosterone is what we are able to use for, muscle recovery, libido, that kind of thing, motivation, drive.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's what testosterone does to
Yeah.
us. It makes us feel good. We're happy.
In women too, correct?
In women,
yes,
absolutely. And so I also checked a sex hormone binding globulin because that is the protein that will bind to testosterone to make your free testosterone go down.
Okay.
And so Zach's free testosterone was 76.9, which was about, once again, kind of low for your age, right?
27, okay.
And so I started looking at the, when Zach came in the office, and I was like, well, he was here at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, later in the day.
Later in the day, and Zach's day starts at
4 a.m. typically.
4 a.m., right?
Yeah, typically.
Testosterone actually has a diurnal variation, and what a diurnal variation means is it's highest in the morning and typically tapers off during the day.
Morning wood.
Yeah, you got it. So that's what you're feeling.
Yeah, there is something to that. It's not just because I'm waking up, but
yes.
probably because most men's testosterone is higher in the morning.
Exactly.
Wow, okay.
And you'll also feel, I don't know if you've ever tapered with working out in the evening versus working out in the morning.
Sure, can never do it.
You can't do it, right?
Yeah.
You're exhausted in the evening, and it's because your testosterone levels are actually tapering off.
Yeah, I've really tried actually, it's just not purely based on our readings, but of how I felt over, my training career. Mm-hmm. I've really tried to move more of my clientele to the morning because that's when I feel more energetic. I feel like I can help more, right?
100%.
I feel more driven,
Yep.
right? So there is something to that. So I guess what we figured, I was at least hoping after this first rating, I'm like, okay, let's hope like the morning is better, right? Yes. So I come in about a week later, right? And what are these numbers, Sarah?
So he came in a week later, and he was, I think that was an 8:30 a.m. blood draw,
yeah, like
right?
very early.
Yes.
Yeah. I was eating gummies. Audrey was holding my hand. I was like almost crying, but it was okay. I made it through it.
Yeah. So this reading was much better. It was 528, and that's right where I want to see you as a 27-year-old male. Sure. But there were also other things coming into play, as you and I talked about, right? So to optimize testosterone levels as a male or a female, sleep is super, super incredibly important.
Sure.
And Zach basically was telling me, I get up really early, which is okay as long as you're getting the optimal amount of sleep you need at night. So there is a lot of stigma around sleep, right? Well, I don't need 8 hours. Like, I feel good on 6 hours. That is 100% a myth.
Bullshit.
100% a myth.
It's all anecdotal, right?
Yes.
I feel this way, right?
And so basically what we have found is subjectively, humans are really bad about telling someone how tired they really are.
Sure.
Performance-based and physiologically, you are sleep deprived.
You're not primed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everyone 100% needs 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, there's no bullshit around this.
No.
The thing that, I'm dumb, Sarah, so you got to explain all this to me a little simply, but someone told me once is that your body is not a bank. You can't accrue credits through sleep, right?
No.
I can't try to get more sleep on the weekend and be, less during the week. Not a thing,
Not a thing.
Okay.
There's also been a study where we have sleep-deprived people during the week, and we've let them have their 2 to 3 days on the weekend where they're getting optimal sleep and even actually getting more sleep. So 10 plus hours after sleep depriving them to 6 hours.
No benefit.
And they came back and they still performed extremely poorly on memory tests and even procedural skills, which would mean lifting weights in the gym or playing basketball or playing football, whatever it might be as an athlete. Yeah. So
I think you guys know me enough. I mean, a big part of my personality, a big part of what I do is primed on getting up, getting the work done, getting out of there, right? Like the 4 a.m. crew has been part of my life since I was 19, really. So I think for me, this is something I struggle with, Sarah, really, because it's, that time's protected by me because here's the truth. I still will probably work out at this time for a long time because no one's hitting me up at 4 a.m., right? And I think, where I've really struggled with this, it's like, okay, maybe my recovery is not optimal, but I'm still making priority for my training. So like, how much does this still matter versus that? And, I'm at the point now where I'm starting to, for me to get a PR in a year, I'd be happy with that 5-10 pounds, right? So now I'm really focused on how can my recovery be tip top and how can I start getting away with doing less in my powerlifting strength, I guess, career, Sarah. And, you know, I'm starting to question, like, hey, you know, are these optimal times lifting, you know, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, you know, what is right for me, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's like, you know, we see a lot of people maybe, oh, I need, you know, I need help with my testosterone. It's like, are you even doing the right things first? So the second number comes back. I'm feeling a little better. I'm like, all right, some things definitely need to change. You know, I'm trying to get in bed earlier. I'm still, you know, I'm really only working out at 4 a.m. probably twice a week now. Monday and Wednesdays is our heavier days. I'll be with Audrey early still at 4:35, but getting a little better sleep. And, you know, my hope is in May to get another blood draw. And, you know, I've been doing 2 to 3 months now, powerlifting again, back kind of full strength. And I want to see, like, all right, is this getting better? Is it getting less? You know, I'm curious because a lot of these readings, and what we'll talk about next is the DEXA scan, were done right after I got the sling off. I mean, this last blood draw was in the end of January. My sling came off the first week of January. So I wasn't really training heavy yet. I mean, I was still doing some things, and we'll touch about that in the DEXA scan. But, you know, I wonder, like, how much of my strength training will play into my T levels. Like, will they be higher, you know, come the test? But I can also say I'm probably not sleeping as much as I was in January. So I'm really curious. I mean, guys, I think this is the important thing. The biggest thing I try to take from this is these numbers will always change, right, Sarah? And I think probably a lot of men get fixated on this number because, you know, here's the fucking truth. Like, between those 2 days, the 300 reading and the low 500 reading, I didn't feel any different, but that second reading made me feel so much better. It was my ego.
Exactly.
It was my male ego. And I'm like, how much does this number really matter? I mean, is it, you know, let's say, Sarah, I come back and my second reading was 3, you know, now I think it's a serious conversation about like, all right, maybe you do need to be sleeping better. Okay. What other things can we do? Maybe it's a more improved nutrition and diet, but at the end of the day, like, does that specific number, will it always be consistent? I'm assuming as I age, right, it will go down. Like, you know, what should men focus on in terms, like, what is the optimal range? When should I come in? Like, how do I know I have low T?
Absolutely. So, okay. So it is going to vary solely basically on the type of training you're doing, your nutrition, and your sleep. Those are the 3 big things. And even stress management, right? So
you'd say sleep, recovery, I guess nutrition plays into that too, and like stress levels are kind of the big 3 things that play into this. Okay.
So for example, I'll throw this out there. I've had marathon runners come in and their levels are really low. Why? Because they have less muscle mass than someone who's like a power lifter or a bodybuilder, right? So the more muscle mass you have, the higher your testosterone levels are going to be.
There is a correlation between
100%, yes. So I've had people come in and they don't do any strength training at all. We recheck their levels in 3 months and things have increased,
just from strength training a little more.
So strength training, huge. Nutrition, also huge. And Audrey's really good about counseling our patients on how to optimize your nutrition for testosterone, right?
Yeah, Audrey just stopped. She just said hi. She heard her name.
Yes, oh my gosh. So, and she's really good about talking to you guys about optimal protein intake for your body mass, specifically how much muscle mass you have. Not only that, but you really have to hone in on those micronutrients. I feel like in the bodybuilding community and the powerlifting.
Chicken, right?
Yeah, you
skip over a lot of things.
Yeah.
First thing when Audrey and I first say it, she's like, where the fuck are your vegetables?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's the truth.
It's a stigma, right? You have to be eating a white rice specifically, a lean meat like a chicken or a turkey, and you very rarely are eating a vegetable or a fruit, right? Because fruit has this stigma that there's so much sugar in it. But to optimize your testosterone, to optimize your health in general, you need those micronutrients from the fruits and the vegetables, and you need a complex carb. Yes, white carbs are great for performance, right? So if you are, you're about to work out, eating a banana, eating a piece of white bread, whatever it might be, is going to be great for the performance. But for your maintenance throughout the day, you need those complex carbs. So nutrition plays a huge role in those testosterone levels. I'll come back again to sleep. There's actually this study that was put out with about, I think that there was about 50 men that are your age, right? Mid-20s. So that's where your testosterone's optimized. They sleep deprived them for 1 day, 6 hours of sleep only, right? Wow. It aged them testosterone-wise by about 50%, meaning their testosterone would decrease just with 6 hours of sleep by 50% of
Wow.
what normal.
So two hours
2
less, and
yeah.
it's reduction about half.
Yeah. So
Wow.
those are super, super big.
Okay.
Stress-wise, you really got to make sure you're managing that work-life balance.
Sure.
I feel like we get very focused in our work, and it's hard for us to take a step back and realize, okay, I might be stressed.
Sure.
I might need to talk to someone. Make sure you're really keeping your mentality in check,
Sure.
because that's going to play a huge role.
I mean,
as
listen,
well.
Sarah, after all this, I'm starting to see a therapist consistently. I'm getting my blood work done consistently. I'm trying to sleep more. Like, I really try to change this narrative of what happened to my bicep. Because here's the truth, guys. I've told this story before, but that weekend, we were out partying that weekend. I was actually with Sarah Saturday night. We were drinking, right? I was under recovered, right? And I go in to pull heavy max effort deadlifts. It's Monday, right? Probably only got 4 hours of sleep that night. Probably still a little intoxicated from the day before, and dehydrated, right?
Yeah.
It was a perfect storm, right?
Exactly.
It was almost like it was meant to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, though, this helped me refocus, and I'm someone who's probably can compete in bodybuilding again, definitely can compete in powerlifting again, but at the end of the day, what this shifted for me, Sarah, was like, okay, my performance is only an hour or two out of the day, but what are the other things I'm doing to actually optimize my life?
Exactly.
Right? Because it's not just about that. And I think the other part of it is the stress side of it, where this goes back to why 4 a.m. is important to me. No one's bothering me, so that helps me manage the stress levels, but it's some give and take. So I'm learning this balance, right? And this is really all this is about. It's just balance, right?
Absolutely.
And finding balance with it. So I guess my question for you, Sarah, is like, if I'm someone watching this, okay, and I'm maybe feeling some of these things, like what should I look out for if my T's low? Because I've started asking a lot of my clients this week, not many people get their testosterone tested.
Oh, no.
In like a typical blood panel, I guess it's not usually included.
No.
Right, okay. So why would I, maybe tell me or our listeners, like, why, hey, I should get it checked. I'm feeling these things. What's something to look out for, I guess, common in men, let's say 20, 30-year-olds?
Yeah. So very common is going to be fatigue throughout the day. You should not be feeling tired throughout the day. Yes, okay, if you're not sleeping enough, that's one thing.
Sure.
But if you are sleeping enough and you're still tired, something's going on there.
Sure.
Recovery in the gym. If you feel like you are sore constantly, there's another reason right there. Testosterone helps us recover. Number three, if you're feeling like your lifts are improving and you're working with someone like Zach, or you're progressive overloading in your training, and things are still really heavy for you, and your PRs are not going up, there's another reason. And then lastly, which is a little more on the emotional side, think about libido, because libido does play a huge role in your testosterone.
Sure.
So if you have a low libido, you're not feeling driven as a 20, 30-year-old male, there's something going on there.
Here's my question. As a later 20-year-old, even 30, like, our libido should still be high.
100%.
When does men's testosterone start to, I guess, naturally decrease? Like, what age is that to? Obviously, it's going to give and take with certain people.
It's definitely going to depend, but I say after 30 is when you start to see a decrease.
Sure.
I would even push 35 and up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. It's interesting, Sarah, because I think there are, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the stigmas around it, but, once again, when I got this first reading, this was my first time ever getting my testosterone, and I saw 300, and I got upset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could have had this 300 reading for a long time,
right?
So I think it's important for people to understand, if you start getting tested, right, the first number doesn't really matter. It's about that second number, right? We encourage people maybe to go in the morning too, not in the afternoon like me. Yep. So, I think, with all that said, Sarah, some of the things I do want to talk about today are like TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. I don't know much about this. I definitely have some questions about it. We got some questions on the Instagram about it. But I guess before we kind of go into that route, if you really shouldn't consider this, right, unless you're hitting all the marks, right? Sleep, recovery, nutrition.
Honestly,
right?
I think it's worth getting a baseline and knowing where you're at as a 25, 27, 30-year-old, because you know how you're feeling right now, and you will know, okay, this is where my testosterone should be optimized, so you might as well go get it tested.
Yeah.
And we're a great clinic that can do that. But, a lot of primary care physicians will kind of talk you out of that, because ideally you should be optimized, but they don't know all the other things that come behind it, right? That we already talked about.
Yeah.
And so those are things that we really truly evaluate when you come in the office. The first thing I ask you, how are you sleeping? What's your nutrition? Tell me about your exercise, stress management, that kind of thing. And then we'll go into the labs and then trying to interpret those results. So I do feel like as a 20, 30-year-old, you should be getting a baseline. I would say if you are feeling one or all of those symptoms, get it tested as well. I don't think that, I've had people come in that state they feel great. They have no symptoms and their levels get back low.
Is getting less hard, like less boners, Sarah, like a symptom?
That's actually not.
It's not?
No,
okay,
it's not.
That's not true. Okay.
So a lot of people think that erections are related to testosterone, and they really
not
are.
at all.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, but libido.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Sex drive.
Sex drive.
Sex drive and getting boner are two different things.
Yes, completely different.
See, I'm learning everything. This is great. Okay, so I guess what we'll kind of finish with, I think these are some good things, but I have some stigmas around testosterone replacement too.
Yeah.
I'm a natural athlete, so,
yeah.
Okay, and here's actually what I've looked into, like, these competitions I do, what they test for, they're testing for just elevated test levels. Yeah. So I guess what this leads me to is, like, what if you have someone who's at 200-300 and you get them to a 600, 700, 800 range, and with TRT, like, what are you trying to get someone to, right? Like, let's say you're working with someone, you're taking it, okay, we try it for a month, 2 months, now it's too high, do we bring it down? Like, how does that process work exactly?
Okay, so typically someone comes in, let's say we decided to start Zach on...
Yeah, I'm curious, like for a 20, let's say we come back and it's even lower, 300, would you recommend someone around that range, 27?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
I would. Usually less than 400 is when I start to recommend.
Okay. Especially with someone who's maybe working out, a lot of resistance training, eating well, maybe not sleeping well, but doing some of the right things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, we want to optimize all of that before we talk about TRT, and I'm really big about that. But I would start you on a very common dose of 200 milligrams weekly. And we typically...
One injection weekly.
Okay. And there are also, questions about that as well, which I can get into, bi-weekly versus weekly, whatever. But we do weekly here, and we do testosterone cypionate. That just seems to be what has worked for most men in our clinic. Okay. And so we'll go 4 weeks of 200 milligrams, and that's very standard dose. Sure. We retest your levels and we kind of adjust based off that. If it's too high, then I'm going to drop you down about 20 milligrams. If it's too low still, then I'll increase you about 20 milligrams. And once we get you to a steady level, which typically is 600 to 900, that is optimal. Okay? Anything above 900, you're not going to receive any additional benefits.
Point of diminishing returns.
Yes, exactly. So after 900, you're not gonna. There's nothing. Yeah, that's a huge misconception in the bodybuilding community.
Sure, I believe it. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm around it quite a bit. I'll be honest with you. I have a client who's been on TRT probably for 20 weeks now, and it's amazing. He's at 38. Yeah, it's amazing the transformation he's gone through. I mean, a little more muscle mass. Reduction in body fat, but really the craziest thing is, like, his mood, his libido's gone up, he feels better, he's happy, and I go into my mind, and here's where I'm at with it all, Sarah. I train a lot of general population people, and for me, never taking a steroid, never taking any type of anabolic, for me, the ability to look at clients in the eye and say, you can do this, it's because I've done it, right? Absolutely. And I think this is where I trip up. It's like, okay, let's say my levels remained low. What benefit would it do for me to, like, kind of wear my pride on the sleeve and be like, well, I'm still not taking it, but I feel like shit. Right. Like, where that's where I've struggled, I guess, and that's why even I remember this client that came to me who's been on it for like 20 weeks. I was like pretty apprehensive at first to train him while he was doing this, and I'm so happy he's done it. I mean, everything in his life's improved, really. And the other client I want to share about is someone who has naturally high levels. He's in his mid-30s, but he's balding. Okay, and I want to talk about this a little bit too. And he shared a lot of this with me because I'm very open with a lot of my clients about what I'm doing, my blood work, these things. And he said, I guess there is a point where too much is too much, right? 100%. And so can we talk a little bit about that and where maybe it being too high leads to some other side effects, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so like I said, 900 is optimal right there. We don't need to push past that.
Have you ever had someone with a higher reading than 900?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very, very common.
Sure.
Because sometimes we can overshoot you. Like,
Sure.
for example,
Sure.
you come in, we say, all right, we're going to start you on 200 milligrams, but in that 4 weeks, I want you to optimize your sleep, optimize your nutrition, optimize
And both sides
exercise,
come together.
all of it, then your level is going to be through the roof,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
So above 900, you can start to see testosterone converted to 2 different pathways, right? One of them is to estrogen,
Okay.
and one is to dihydrotestosterone.
Okay.
Obviously, men should not have too much testosterone. You do need some.
Estrogen.
Right?
Estrogen.
Sorry.
Yes.
And then basically what happens with the estrogen is you're going to start having nipple tenderness. You start acting like a female, a little bit moody. You're
Sure.
kind of bloated.
Sure.
You're not seeing the results you should be seeing with
Okay.
testosterone replacement, right?
Okay.
Now the dihydrotestosterone pathway is gonna, you're going to see male pattern balding. So this
Interesting.
bitemporal balding about right here.
Oh, it's even specific to an area.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've read a lot about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
There's shampoos and stuff to like, because that's what the oil on your scalp, right?
Yeah, so
Oh,
exactly.
Wow.
So there are blockers for both of those pathways that we can put you on for
Something you would take with TRT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Now, to me, like, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower your dose and see if we can optimize. We
Sure.
can push back to the
Sure.
testosterone
Sure.
rather than the 2 pathways.
Sure.
But if it seems like we just can't get it figured out, then I'll put you on a blocker. One's called Arimidex for the estrogen, and then the other's called finasteride for
Yes.
the dihydrotestosterone.
Okay.
And they both work great. But yes, those are too much testosterone is not always a good thing.
More isn't better.
Exactly.
Do you know what your standard dose is that you give people for that? Because I know, like, I just wonder if it's different from like one of those big companies that does like Keeps or Hims or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah, so like your standard dose of finasteride.
Yeah.
It really is going to depend on the patient, but I think I would start someone, I want to say 20 milligrams.
Okay.
I want to say 20
Is this an
milligrams.
injectable?
No, so these are both oral.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes.
So, and I guess we probably should ask this first. When you're taking testosterone replacement therapy, so your body, does it continue to produce its own testosterone? Or does it stop?
Yeah, so that is a really big thing that we always ask our patients when they come in. Are you interested in having kids in the future?
Oh, wow.
100%. I know he is, because
Wow.
I know who he's dating.
Yeah.
Because it does shut down your natural production of testosterone.
Wow. Okay.
That does not mean that it shuts it down completely, so that
Sure.
does not mean that this is a form of birth control.
Sure. Okay.
But basically what testosterone does is it helps you produce sperm, right? And so when we are giving you testosterone, you're going to shut down your own production. Your testicles will actually shrink.
Yes.
Okay.
If
And
you don't
that's-
take these blockers, right?
Well, that's also different.
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure. Okay.
But your testicles will shrink and your sperm production will decrease. Okay.
Wow.
Like I said, it doesn't mean we're shutting down your own production completely. So
Okay.
it is not a form of birth control, but your levels will be way lower.
Okay.
And so when you come off of TRT, like say we were to start you
Is
at,
that the hope, Sarah, to eventually come off of it?
if you're young,
Sure.
like
Yes,
you,
young enough.
yes.
Sure.
Say you and Audrey want to have kids in 5 years.
Sure.
Okay, we put you on TRT now, and we have to wean you off of
Sure.
it so your natural production.
It'll build back up, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
The way I describe it is it's almost like a female on birth control, right?
Mm.
So we are supplementing with a hormone. We shut down our natural production. It takes time to get your own hormones back up and moving, right?
Rebooting.
So you brought up another thing, the testicles shrink.
Sure.
Yes.
Regardless.
TRT, testosterone specifically, yes, your
Wow.
testicles will shrink because
Wow.
that is where testosterone is produced.
Wow.
Okay. We can put you on something called HCG that will help your testicles stay the normal size, or we could try Clomid. These actually help the hormones from your brain that signal your testicles to produce its own testosterone.
Wow.
So in that case, you will still be producing your own testosterone as well as supplementing with an injectable form of testosterone, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when we got my first test, Sarah, and we talked on the phone, I called you and I was like really nervous. And I said, first, Sarah, let's test again.
Yeah.
But you mentioned some type of pill that maybe would start me out. We didn't do it, but it was something you brought up. And what was that?
That was Clomid.
Okay. What is Clomid?
Clomid is actually going to stimulate the two hormones in your brain from your pituitary gland called FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, and LH, which is luteinizing hormone. Those two hormones they signal this, it's the same thing, right? It's going to help you produce testosterone, right? But these are going to signal your testicles to produce your own natural testosterone. Okay. So typically for a younger male in their 20s that do have aspirations of having children, that is the route I go.
Before TRT?
Before testosterone, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And from there, we can wean you off of it.
Clomid as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a weekly thing like TRT?
So,
is it daily?
Yeah, so this is an oral tablet. Your starting dose is typically every other day. Okay. So typically 3, maybe 4 times a week, depending on the week. If you're not responding well to that, it's the same process, right? So we'll recheck you in 4 weeks. Then we will increase your dose to every single day, basically. Okay.
Yeah, I remember, this conversation with Sarah, and I almost was like mad at Sarah because I was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't, it was once again, back to my male ego.
Yeah.
And it's like so interesting. That's why I want to have this conversation with you, Sarah, because, I want to do this for a long time. I know a lot of people are watching this want to do this for a long time. Yeah. So for me, it was about optimizing where I'm at. And, I think I'm in a good place now. I'm trying to understand, like, all right, I know I'm missing a good piece of the pie with the sleep, right? Yeah. And this is something I'm battling with. And I know as life evolves and all this, like, I'll continue to get better because here's the truth. I still have PRs I want to hit, things I want to do after the bicep tear. So this has really helped recenter me. And I think, really the big thing I want people to take from this is like, all this will forever change, right? Health is just our response to our current environment, right? So, your test levels are going to go up, they're going to go down, they're going to go up, right? They'll never really be consistent. So I guess if someone's getting, interested in taking this next step, Sarah, and finding out more about their testosterone, how often would you recommend getting it tested?
Getting your hormones tested?
Yeah, for sure.
So I would say, get your baseline, right? And then from there, depending on your lifestyle, whether you take that baseline and you decide, I'm going to implement all these things that Sarah and Zach talked about, I would say give it 6 months, retest it.
Make sure you're making some changes though, within that time. Don't stay the same. Expect something different, right?
But you also need to realize that if you are not making those changes or if your lifestyles are worsening, that this is affecting your testosterone 100%, and that is a proven fact. So if you come back in 6 months and you know what, I didn't make those lifestyle changes, just expect that it's either going to stay the same or it's going to be lower. Yeah,
I think up until this point, Sarah, I always hung my hat on the fact that, I know I train hard. I know I eat pretty well. Yep. I said, you know what? Sleep is okay if I miss a little bit of that piece, but you're telling me right now, like, if you're getting less than about 8 hours of sleep, it is definitely affecting your performance. Yeah.
That's number one, man.
Yep.
Number one.
Yep.
Sleep is number one. And, I do put a huge emphasis on exercise and nutrition, but you cannot have exercise and you cannot have proper nutrition without sleep.
Yeah, guys, this is important because Sarah's on the clinical side here, and she's a fitness trainer, so she understands both sides of this. I'm just a dumb trainer, and I think for me it's helpful to have these conversations because it recenters me and it affirms me, it really validates me. Like, hey, this is like probably things other people are going through and feeling.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So I'm happy we got to have this talk with Sarah today. I think we'll probably have her back on at some point.
Yeah.
Love to have Audrey on too, and we can have like this double side of recovery, right?
For sure.
So we'll get this posted. This will be live up on Friday. Hopefully we get some more questions from him. Maybe we could do a part 2. But testosterone today. I appreciate everyone checking in. Sarah, thank you for your time. This was awesome. This was awesome. Very informative. I feel like very enlightened right now. So this was awesome.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
All right.
Awesome.